For 40 long days, a giant warrior walked onto the battlefield and challenged an entire nation. His footsteps echoed through the valley, heavy, deliberate, like thunder rolling across the hills. His voice, deep, terrifying, commanding, shook the hearts of every man who heard it. Seasoned warriors, trained for battle, stood frozen in place, not because they lacked weapons, but because they were overwhelmed by fear. And day after day, morning and evening, the challenge continued, but no one stepped forward. No one answered him, until, one day, a shepherd boy walked into the valley, and everything changed. The valley of Elah stretched wide beneath the burning sun, a place caught between two armies, and two very different spirits. On one hill stood the army of Israel, chosen, called, yet shaken. On the opposite hill stood the Philistines, bold, confident, unmoved. The air was heavy, filled with tension, yet no battle began, because sometimes the greatest battles are lost, before they even start, in the hearts of men. Then he appeared, Goliath of Gath, a warrior unlike any other, towering above every soldier, his armor shining under the sun. His presence alone was enough to silence an army. Every step he took carried power. Every movement demanded attention. He stood not just as a man, but as a symbol of fear. And then he spoke, "Choose a man, and let him come down to me." His voice echoed across the valley, filled with pride, filled with mockery. He did not just challenge Israel, he defied their God. And with every word he spoke, the courage of the soldiers faded, little by little, until silence took over. The soldiers looked at one another, waiting, hoping that someone else would step forward. But no one moved. Not the strongest, not the bravest, not even the king. Because fear, when left unchecked, can silence even the boldest hearts. Far away from the battlefield, far from the noise and fear, a young shepherd walked quietly among his sheep. His name was David. He was not a warrior. He had no armor, no title, no reputation. But in the quiet fields, he had learned something powerful. He had learned how to trust God. One day, his father called him and gave him a simple instruction. Take this food to your brothers. It seemed like a small task, ordinary, unimportant. But sometimes, the smallest assignments lead to the greatest moments. As David approached the battlefield, he heard a voice, loud, aggressive, echoing across the valley. He stopped and listened carefully. The words shocked him, not because of fear, but because of what they meant. This giant was not just insulting an army, he was mocking the living God. And while fear spread through the soldiers, something else rose within David: faith. David stepped forward and asked, "Who is this man, that he dares to defy the armies of the living God?" His words were bold, unexpected, filled with conviction. But not everyone believed in him. His own brothers questioned him. "Why are you here? Go back to your sheep." Sometimes, the people closest to you may not understand the faith inside you. But David did not back down. He knew what he believed. He knew who God was. And he refused to let fear speak louder than faith. Soon, David stood before King Saul. The king looked at him and saw only a boy, small, inexperienced, unqualified. But David spoke with confidence. "I have faced lions. I have faced bears. And every time, God delivered me. This giant will be no different." There was something in his voice, something real, something undeniable. And the king allowed him to go. They placed armor on David. Heavy, unfamiliar, restrictive. But he removed it because he understood something powerful. You don't need what others rely on. When your trust is in God, then David stepped onto the battlefield. Alone. Every eye was on him. A shepherd walking toward a giant. Goliath saw him and laughed. Am I a dog, that you come to me with sticks? He saw weakness, but he did not see faith. David replied boldly, You come against me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the Lord. This was not just a battle, it was a declaration of faith. David reached into his bag, took a stone, and placed it in his sling. Time seemed to slow. The air grew still. He swung the sling once, twice, and released. The stone flew forward, guided not just by skill, but by faith. It struck the giant directly in the forehead. Goliath staggered, then fell. The ground shook beneath him. Silence filled the valley. The giant was down. The impossible had happened. A shepherd had defeated a giant. This story is not just about David, it is about faith. Because in life, we all face giants. Giants of fear. Giants of doubt. Giants that seem too big, too strong, too impossible. But remember this? David did not win because he was strong. He won because he trusted God. And when you place your faith in God, even the greatest giants will fall